In today's episode, we talk through Grey Matta Solutions' next 5-year strategy. So what we thought we might do today is, because we're nearing towards the end of the development of that strategy, we thought we'd let you as the listener sit in on our discussion between ourselves about our strategy moving forward, and if we're happy with our strategy, what it looks like, etc., etc. So we hope you enjoyed the chat. Let's get into it. So, we've been working for the last couple of months on our strategy here at Grey Matta Solutions, and we've nearly come to the end of the formulation of our 5-year strategy, because now we're into our 6th year of Grey Matta.
Yes, we are. And we'd got towards the end of the first 5-year plan that I had way back when, that I formulated in the first year of operation when I was testing the marketplace. So, yeah, we're in the second iteration of a 5-year plan.
And we have a 5-year plan which we work back from that has different stages. So there's a 3-year target, I suppose, a 1-year plan, and then 6 months, 90 days. And it all is drawn back from this 5-year direction. And then we have the smaller, more bite-sized pieces of actually how we're going to get there.
The problem is with planning too far out is you end up being particularly less accurate in what your projections are. 5 years ago, who would have thought we'd have a global pandemic?
So true.
The same thing could be said about a GFC in previous times. You don't plan for those sorts of things, they happen. So the adaptability of your plan is important. So you start with a 5-year. It can be your big, hairy, audacious goal for the 5 years if everything went perfectly, it's where you could end up. And that's really important. Then you come back to 3-year, which is something that you can actually spend a bit more planning on because it gets a bit more action oriented. Over 3 financial years, you can do some reasonable sorts of projections. Then back to 12 months. What are you going to do in the next year to reach your 3-year and obviously reach your 5-year? And then it becomes important as to what you're going to do in the next quarter, which drives what you have to do in the next month, which drives, funnily enough, what you have to do tomorrow.
Exactly. And I mean, we do quarterly actions, like what's our drive for this next 90-day sprint, but we know businesses that do 7-day sprints. It's what am I going to do this week, and what are the action items that need to be ticked off this week? And I mean, we all have to-do lists and those sorts of things, but this particular company focus on 7-day cycles, which is interesting. I guess to start off with, like we always do, we have to reflect, I feel.
Yes.
So the first 5-year plan for Grey Matta, when you were sitting there in the first year going, well, gee, what does it look like in 5 years' time? Have you hit that, do you think?
In some areas I've exceeded it. In some areas I haven't come close to it. So my overall scorecard for that period of time is probably a 7 out of 10. So whether that's an indication of exceptional work by us or whether it's an indication of a very conservative plan, time will tell, because we do tend to be conservative with our planning because we obviously want to reach targets. We get that dopamine hit when we're successful. So it feels good. Simple as that. So when I did the first plan, it was all around one division of this business. It was all around GMS business or Grey Matta business. And that was the board development, leadership development, team development, strategic planning, funnily enough, operational planning, all those bits of the business, those practical bits of the business that help a business succeed. And a lot of the listeners will be familiar with the fact that a couple of years ago we added recruitment to a recruitment division to our business. And in fact, some people will only know us as a recruitment company rather than the other pieces that we've got to the puzzle. And that was I guess the process for doing that was the importance of getting the right people, doing the right things in the right chairs. And the other thing about we tend to employ on skill and sack on behaviour, those sorts of pieces that need to change for a business to be successful. So what I'm saying is in the business section, there's a whole lot of processes that we adapt obviously, to your business, but there's some solid processes for success and continued success. And then the second division of our business was about the people, because I believe there's three elements to good business, and it's become more apparent now with the pandemic that there are the three core areas that we need to plan strategically for the future.
And we'll get to those three because they become important about our next 5 years. But yeah, I certainly, to round out that initial reflection piece, I think a 7 out of 10 is a fair estimate. We had some things in there that we went up a certain path and had to make a U-turn and take the other path. And there's some things we've tried and that haven't stuck and those sorts of things. Like I assume a lot of businesses have the same problems throughout their life cycle. But I think where we've got to today and now moving forward into the next 5 years is, and you're right, it's become very apparent since the pandemic has kicked off, but these three core areas of our own strategy in our own business, and that we also preach out when we're doing strategy workshops with our clients, which I'll let you explain those three. But what's funny about these three core areas is they're actually reflective in our three core offering divisions.
Yes.
So I'll let you sort of kick us off with our next 5-year plan by, I guess, giving us this initial overview piece of where we sit as a business and the three parts to our strategy.
I think it's important to start with where strategy comes from. Now, when we did the recruitment division of the business, before it was launched, there was probably 18 months, 2 years worth of data, analytics, conversations and planning, and before we had an offering. So
networking,
yeah, absolutely, and just to see market testing, to see if their market would like it. So strategy is not something that you go and sit in a room once a year and swan off to somewhere if you can.
Offsite, have an offsite,
and so you have that freedom of thinking. It's not something that that is all encompassing in that event. That's the culmination of many, many, many months of kicking stuff around, and as I say, looking at analytics, looking at data, looking at what the market's doing, trends, and in our case, because it's really important to everything that we do, we put the human in. It's how receptive the market is to an increased level of humanizing something that has, in a lot of cases, become transactional. Recruitment's a classic. You can go down the transactional path and get a person to fill a seat and then have the joys of trying to get them to do the job well and, ultimately probably exit them from the organisation because you're too tolerant and all those bits and pieces. But if the marketplace hadn't have said to us, you know what, there's merit in putting the human back into this, then it wasn't a good strategy to roll out. So it wasn't worth considering. So we talk about the last couple of months, we've been doing our strategic planning, and we've involved our Brains Trust in our strategic planning, and they've very generously given up time to us in a room with a whiteboard, with us saying, this is what we think, and them saying, you've got to be dreaming.
Yeah, literally. And I mean, it's a case of getting that outside external opinion on things is important because you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And you might be missing something in your thinking.
Exactly right. And the third piece to Grey Matta this year has been 12 months in the making.
Yes, it has.
So the takeaway, I guess, there is it takes time to do a strategic plan. But there comes a point in time when you have to make the decision that that's what you're going to run with for now, and then be ready to change it, review it. We've got a process of quarterly reviewing our strategic plan, and we have a set process for that. So we're not, the quarterly review doesn't change the company's overall direction, the 5-year plan, because it's an audacious goal.
Yeah.
Right. But it changes. It's like sailing. It's changing tack to pick up the right winds. so that your business goes faster towards the finish line that you've previously set. So we adjust regularly. We question all the time.
We're also open to opportunity all the time too.
And that's because we question all the time. It's not a set and forget thing for us. It's, were our assumptions right 3 months hence? The assumptions we make today about a strategic direction, are they still current?
Exactly right. And I mean, a perfect example of the sort of remaining open to opportunity piece is obviously the pandemic hit, and as part of our recruitment division, we suddenly saw that there's an opportunity there, or could be an opportunity with the unfortunate rise of unemployment, that generally there's going to be a big shift in the market. There's going to be a lot of movement. So there might be an opportunity there to help some people out with their job seeking activities. So we decided to launch a resume writing service. We did that probably 2 or 3 months ago in the sort of height of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And was that necessarily in the plan?
Nope.
No, it wasn't necessarily in the plan, but it's something that we saw, hey, we're already doing this. We've got the skill to do this. We've been doing this for 2 years with working with our candidates and that sort of thing, in assisting them with their resumes. Let's formalize that process, go to market with that quickly, and double-edged sword, capture the opportunity. But as well, it's another way we can help people, because that's at the core of what we do as well, is people. Obviously, putting the human in is our tagline. So we saw that as a real opportunity, given that the need for external recruitment we knew was going to slow with this pandemic straight away. So we thought, well, as an addition in that division, this makes perfect sense.
Well, to draw another example, do you think any of the distilleries had in their 5-year plan that they were going to produce hand sanitizer?
Yeah, how good's that? I reckon that's brilliant.
So it's important to play the long game for the long gain in this. You've got to take some risks with strategic planning, because you can't always be right. It's impossible, because you actually don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And one of the biggest, I guess, I was going to say failings, but the more interesting facts about the brain is that we pride ourselves in the way that we can forward think and forward plan and so on. But we base it all in history. So it's based around our experiences and what's happened beforehand, because that's really all we've got.
Exactly.
You know, we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring.
We can predict, but we don't know.
Absolutely. And what was evident to me 4 or 5 years ago, to be honest, was that there were 3 pillars of business that would be at some stage very important in the future. And we've actually got people like McKinsey and Harvard Business Review talking about it currently, about the stuff that we set ourselves up for a year ago. So it's really interesting that globally people are starting to have this discussion, particularly about the what looks like our latest offering in the marketplace. The 3 pillars. For me, we've got to have our business strategy right. So that is our true business strategic planning. The second pillar is purely around people and people strategy, recruitment, right people, right seats, willing to do the job.
And piece of that's workforce plan and that sort of thing.
Well, yes, it is. Succession planning, workforce planning, future skill planning is very important. And this is what we do with recruitment, of course. We look at the role that became vacant yesterday, and we then develop the skills that role will need in a year's time and apply that. We don't want a yesterday person. We want a tomorrow person, because our business will have moved on in that period of time. So the people piece is very important. The third pillar is to do with digital IT strategy. Now, that might seem a little vague. A lot of us as businesses have an IT department.
Yes, and it will mean different things to different businesses depending on your size and the structure and those sorts of things.
It will. And a lot of businesses are still, IT's that thing that really annoys us, particularly when it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it's our big risk area because they're
cybersecurity
type stuff. The importance that we're seeing is it's importance to have a strategy around how you're going to utilize, no matter how big or small you are, how you're going to utilize technology to improve your business. Now, improving your business might simply mean that you get rid of some of the manual tasks that are taking you personally as a small business owner time to allow you more time to spend with your clients. Or in a big business, it may mean that you automate a certain process, certain activity that normally you'd have a person doing, that frees that person up to utilize their brains better to improve the business.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we all have things that we do that consume time. I'm not talking about downsizing the organization, right? We're not talking about the whole robotics stream and so on. We're talking about maximizing efficiency within your business. So you need a strategy around that, because we want to optimize business results. We, like so many others, our digital division, it can build apps, it can do websites, it can write software. We've got all the experts that we need to do security, to do platform development and functionality improvement and so on. Lots of people out there doing that, but we preface it all with talking, what do you need to do, rather than what does someone want to sell you. So we look at that strategy piece, and we, back in the early part of last decade, when I was doing amalgamations as a case in point, when mergers and acquisitions and so on happen, you see business strategy done, and you see a rise in human resource strategy and a rise in IT strategy, because those two functions are the only way that a business can actually do its transition to its morphing into its new piece. However, I don't think we actually ever did that particularly well, particularly the IT space, because we didn't understand it well enough. So our part of putting the human back into Grey Matta Digital is about being that interface for businesses between the technocrats and the people that understand business and business strategy, and having those conversations so that you can better understand what you're getting and what you're doing.
So for us, linking this back to Grey Matta, so we recognise this need, and we've added all of these extra pieces around IT and digital. But how have we done that?
It's funny, isn't it? I've spoken to you a bit over the last 6 months about me learning a new language, and literally the new language has been digital, and being able to talk in that space with very little background in it. I'm better known for crashing IT than I am for doing a good job with it. So when we decided that it was an important function of business, we set about looking for the right partnerships, the right people to be involved in that. So we put our recruitment hat on to an extent and said, all right, we want these behaviours around this type of business. We want those people. Because
people that align with us.
Absolutely, because they then will represent us well, but they will also have that fundamental need for success in humans and helping people succeed. So we set about finding those people, and it just so happened that I was coaching a gentleman with no thought around business partnerships or anything like that. We got to know each other really well and liked what each other did and what each other stood for.
How we operated.
And the rest is history, because we've now an exceptionally talented man with a very good network of people, and the premise, I guess, of the way he operates is to see success. It's not about delivering a product, it's about delivering a result. For businesses, which is aligned with what we want. So the last 12 months has been pretty intense in working that up to what that might look like, what we can do versus what we will do, and the whole suite of offerings, and making sure that everything that we did was aligned and didn't firstly, it made sense to the people around us, to our clients and stakeholders, but also that it made sense to you and I that this was something, because we don't know anything about it. Huge level of trust in here about the delivery of it. We have to be more confident than when we're delivering. So we had to go through all of that before we could release anything to the big wide world.
And that's also a never-ending learning process for us as well. Like, we have that fundamental understanding and knowledge, of course, which is required. But yeah, it's a constant learning process.
The other thing, we just focused there on the digital piece and how important it is now that we get this right and not waste money in the digital space. But it's also the ability to have a foot in each camp, right? So you can have a digital strategy, as you said earlier, you can have a digital strategy, but it doesn't stand alone. You can have the best digital strategy in the world, but if you don't have the right people to deliver it, nothing will happen. And if your business doesn't need that strategy, so your strategic plan from your business isn't represented there, then what's the point? So that's the other thing. When each of our divisions, when people tend to go down the rabbit hole, if you like, of that division, we have that overarching connection between the three facets, because it's let's get back to fundamentals. My belief is those three things, not the three individual things, those three things together are what will make businesses successful into the future.
Like I said at the start, that's going to mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but that is of any business of any size, we believe. But those the core
pillars are the important bit, and that is actually probably why our business delivers in those areas. Is because we've built our business around those core areas, and we know it works. We know it's successful.
Yeah,
that's true. Why we're still here, because we've built our business around those pillars.
All right, I think we might end it there then, I guess. So, world domination in 5 years, or was that the goal?
Probably not, but we'll make a difference.
Absolutely, and no doubt we'll be documenting the journey along the way, I suppose.
Yes, well, we're about to release to our Brains Trust the final version of our strategic planning and our marketing plans and sales plans and things like that. So we're about to have that moment of truth for us. And then come December, we'll re-look at it and see what the world's doing at that time. Remembering that decisions need to be based in fact, so they need to be based on analytics, based on data, and based on trends that you're actually seeing, not that you're guessing.
Cool. Well, hopefully this episode sort of helped you, I guess, in the formulation of your own strategic plans, and maybe got you thinking about how you might be able to go about structuring those, making sure that you haven't forgotten those elements that we mentioned that we believe are so core to the planning of any business. Thank you very much for jumping on today.
Pleasure.
And we'll see you next time in the Grey Matta podcast.